Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast, brought to you by talkingdevils.co.uk, your number one independent Manchester United podcast, and also brought to you by the TalkSport Network as well. I am your host, Keane Franey, here today, and as always, I'm joined by two former Manchester United players here this evening. So, first off, joined by Mr. Phil Marsh, and also joined by Lee Lawrence as well. We're here today to talk about, obviously, Manchester United's previous game against Arsenal. We're going to discuss Fulham this Sunday as well, and we're going to delve into a bit of transfer news as well as that. So do smash like the video, drop your comments below, and do get involved in the chat with the lads here this evening. First of all, Phil, how's life been since Sunday, since Man United have come back onto our television screens since Sunday?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously disappointing result, but I thought the performance overall was positive. I think just good to have some football back. Looking forward to obviously seeing how we can get on now. We've sort of got that first game out of the way. So yeah, looking forward to it, mate. I think there was quite a lot of stuff that I seen on Sunday that was promising, but I'm sure we'll get into it in a bit. I think the goalkeeper, which is what we mentioned in terms of a position that needs to be nailed down, is something that I think, that was highlighted again in terms of, the goal and stuff. So, yeah.
And Lee, how are you feeling since Sunday? Is there an air of optimism looking at the football we played on Sunday?
Yeah, first of all, good evening, guys. It's just good to have football back, isn't it? Let's be honest. It fills that gap, which feels like there's a massive void when that final whistle blows for the season. I'm just glad to have football back and be able to watch something I love watching. Optimistic about the season? Yep, definitely. I think we've all got used to now a loss with Man United most of the time. But to play the play we played, I'm sure we'll delve into it more on this podcast today. It looked right. It was a lot more. I have a lot more faith than I did last season. Playing against Arsenal, even we could have got 5 or 6 passes. You never felt that. On Sunday, we looked like it was a much stronger outfit, a lot more disciplined. And it'd be nice to pick the teeth out of it on this podcast today, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for our viewers as well, who may not, who would have tuned in last week, but maybe for some viewers who are tuned in as new viewers this week, we all had a stab at score predictions for last weekend. So as you can see, all three of us went with three different score lines, and not one of us were right this week. So we're all on 0 points this week. And hopefully one of us, or all of us, hopefully even, we all get the correct scores for the Fulham game, which we'll talk about that later on. But this is going to be a common trend on the pod where after every game, I'm going to bring up our score predictions at the start, and we're either going to laugh or we're going to gloat on how well we actually done in our score predictions. It's safe to say, lads, none of us hit the mark there.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Didn't expect nothing different from myself, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the first day sort of optimism was sort of played a part in my result. I did actually think a draw, but yeah.
Look at me, lads. I had an absolute stinker with 3-1 as well, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
When's the last time we scored 3 goals in the Premier League game at home?
I think we got a bit giddy, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. But look, this is the thing. We've seen a bit of pre-season, seen a bit of promise, and that's what happened. But look, that's exactly what I'm going to jump into now. Is obviously Cunha and Mbeumo both made their first competitive starts at home, and there was a lot of hype about the lads starting last weekend. Phil, I'll come to you first. What do you make of their performances? Do you think they seemed phased at all by playing at Old Trafford in front of 70,000 people?
No, I thought they started quite well. The weight of the jersey at Old Trafford, playing for Man United, and the expectation is always there for people to see. And I think them 2 players on Sunday, performed really well. I thought, Mbeumo making some good runs, getting himself into the box, worked his socks off. I think he did sort of tire in the second half a little bit, but I thought overall both players had a really good start to the campaign. Obviously, would have been nice if one of them could have maybe got a goal or got on the score sheet or, an assist or something just to give you that extra little bit of confidence. But overall, I'm quite happy with the way them two players performed. And I think, moving forward, they are going to be key players for us. I think, in terms of if we are going to break teams down and try and score, I think, them two look like they're going to be an integral part of that. So, yeah, a good start. And hopefully, now that that's out of the way, the sort of weight's maybe been lifted in terms of, the expectation, and everyone all eyes on the first game. So hopefully now they can just settle in and sort of, carry on with the progress they've sort of made since they joined the club.
And Lee, do you look at the way Matheus Cunha carried the ball? It seemed like he had a bit of swagger about him, didn't he?
Look, mate, for me, there was a hell of a lot to like. Let's be honest, Arsenal, when we're looking at it, there's the odds on, or one of the odds on favourites for winning the league this year. I'm pretty sure we said on the podcast, we were saying we'd be happy if we can get between 6th and 8th. So to put the performance in we did as a team overall, for me, was very pleasing. I think, like Phil said, we was a little bit optimistic at the first game and, all hoping that we hit the ground running. But Cunha, I mentioned it going back to you, Cunha, the point on Cunha, I mentioned it on the last pod. For me, I was over the moon when we signed him. Again, a couple of seasons ago, I mentioned him on the podcast again. I think he's going to be an absolutely fantastic player. I think he's going to be, like we said again last week, I think he's going to be the player of the season. You can see the energy, the enthusiasm he has. I loved it when he was geeing the crowd up and, trying to get the crowd going. I thought that was fantastic. He looked like he was at home. He has that bit of swagger, a bit of ball skill. Again, I'd like to see him tried out on the odd occasion, like we mentioned again last week in the middle of the park. I think he can break. The way he can break through the midfield and carry that ball is excellent. I think he's going to be a great signing. Same with Mbeumo. First touch, immaculate sometimes. The ability to run with the ball at pace. I was impressed, but not just with the new signings too. I thought De Ligt was excellent at centre-back. I thought he had a fantastic game. I think although Mason Mount, again, was like a false nine, I think he played very well. Although I do believe, Phil will let you know more than me, I do believe he missed a proper number 9 out there. I personally would have started Tesco. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen against Fulham. But like I say, there was Mbeumo, Cunha, even Casemiro. I thought Casemiro had a great first half. He's getting to that age now where it looks like he tires a bit in the second. But I think overall there was a hell of a lot of positives to take out of a loss. Normally when we do lose, there's not many positives last season or a couple of seasons past what we could take out. I think there was a lot more positives than negatives on Sunday, which is pleasing.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I came out of watching that game on Sunday and I was like, we're going to do really well this season. Like I said straight out to myself, I was like, we're going to do really well. And look, I know people might think that's ludicrous because it's after like 90 minutes of football, but I looked at patterns of play. I looked at the overall energy that the team had, the willingness to get into a tackle, the willingness to press high. They're things we weren't seeing last season quite often. So like they're like even they're just the simple things I've seen. That's like, yeah, okay, if we can do these things every week, we're not going to finish 15th anyway. That this could be famous last words now, but we're not going to finish 15th this season. Like, looking at the way Amram wants to set us up and Ruto wants us to play, and I think 1 game a week with the squad we have, and if we get a couple more reinforcements in by the end of the window, then look, we could be in real business for a top 6 or even top 5 challenge. I really do think that. Sean said, I know it's a Man United podcast, but I suppose the player who was massively linked with us all summer is Victor Gyökeres. He's calling Victor mediocres by the looks things. Phil, I'll come to you as a striker. What do you make of his performance on Saturday? Considering, I suppose, Matheus de Ligt actually been in and out. He's had a lot of problems, but he looked like he mopped the floor with him, really.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that. I think de Ligt had a really good game. I think he sort of bullied him a little bit and sort of got the better of him. But no, I mean, to be honest, it's still early days. I think he didn't have one of his best games. Let's be blunt about that. I think he can obviously do a lot more, but there was a few signs that I seen what I thought, oh, actually, yeah, some of the runs he made and some of the sort of movements and little bits of play. But I think, in one game to sort of judge him, I think it's pretty harsh, really, to sort of start making assumptions of, how he's going to do. I think all it'll take is probably, a goal or a couple more, games to get under his belt, and then he'll sort of feel a little bit more settled in the Premier League. It's obviously hard to come in from a different league and sort of, start and, slot straight into a team and look like you've been there for years. I don't think there's many players that have ever done that, really. So, yeah, overall, he's got the attributes to be a potentially good striker, but it's obviously a different league with the Premier League, and I say De Ligt sort of got the better of him on Sunday, so he probably thinks after that game, right, well, I've got to work a little bit harder, or I've got to do a bit more to, try and reach the heights that he was getting at Sporting Lisbon, because, as I say, the Premier League's a different animal, and he will struggle if obviously, he doesn't up his game a little bit. But yeah, still early days. I'm sure he will come good at some point. It's, whether it's in the next couple of weeks or whether it takes him a couple of months.
Yeah, I think
I was going to say, Keane, to add to that point, I watched Wayne's tactical podcast with the lads earlier on today, and I think he made a great point where the crowd played. I think the crowd played a massive part of it too, because every time he lost the ball, they was on his back. Every time De Ligt took the ball off him, you could hear it on telly. I know Wayne was there seeing it firsthand, and I think they just knocked the confidence out of him, mate. And I think that the crowd did a great job in knocking the confidence out of a player too.
Yeah, 100%, and it probably doesn't help it doesn't help that, I suppose, some of the ways they were trying to provide him with service, they didn't gel quickly enough. Now, I think, look, that'll manifest itself over time, but I think just the way they were trying to provide him with service wasn't the way he was getting at Swarton. And, again, in the Premier League, you're not going to get as much space as you do in Portugal naturally, so it's going to take time for him to adapt. Same way Haaland, it took him a couple of weeks, and he was firing every week then. So it could be a similar thing. And then Paul says in the comments there, he says 26 hair touches and no touches of the ball, he's saying. Yeah, he did flick his hair a lot. That is. So I will come to that question when we get to the Fulham game, where we are talking about that. So I will come to that comment later on in the podcast. But I suppose in terms of what we seen then, what impressed you both the most about our performance, and consequently I'll two-part this question. What concerned you, if anything, about the performance itself? I'll come to you firstly.
What impressed me was, more than anything, for me, we didn't look like every time we lost the ball from midfield to our attacking positions that we was going to get broke on and we could concede a goal every time. I think we looked a lot more disciplined and a lot more structured than we did last season. I wasn't panicking every time we lost the ball. Like I said, that they were going to counter and they was going to score. I think although Bruno didn't look like he did a massive amount in the game, I think he was a lot more disciplined and played more for the team than for himself. So yeah, I was impressed more of individual performances like we've just mentioned, but also as a team performance and as a collective. I was impressed, and I was more optimistic than I was last season. I think the overall disappointment for me was, again, the goalkeeper. Don't want to call him out. I do believe it was a foul. Don't get me wrong. I do think it was a foul. I don't know how we can flip from you can't touch a goalkeeper in the box. How many times do you see literally a fingernail go on a goalkeeper when he's challenging for a ball with a striker and they've given the foul to the goalkeeper? He had his hands on the goalkeeper, pushing him back, even going off the goalkeeper. He had all the Mason Mount shirt and pulling Mason Mount shirt. For me, it was a foul all day long. But on the flip side of that, if you're a goalkeeper, again, I'll go back to Tom Eaton, and Tom will tell you this. If that ball, no matter how good that ball is, and believe me, that is a good ball that Declan Rice puts in there. That is a fantastic ball, and it's sometimes it's unplayable, and I get it. But a goalkeeper like Tom Eaton, when we was kids, is cleaning you out, he's cleaning the man in front of you out, and he's cleaning the man in front of him out, and he's getting that ball. Binder was just a little bit too soft. I don't know, confidence thing or whatever. But for me, goes back to the point what we made last week. For me, we're in desperate need of a goalkeeper, mate.
100%. And Paul, says that in the comments as well. He says that the goalkeeping position was the biggest concern coming out of the game. I suppose that's coming from a defender's point of view, Phil, in terms of, you know, with the fouls and that, I suppose with the way Saliba surrounded both Mount and Boyinder. I suppose yourself as a striker, as a forward in them positions, like, did Saliba kind of, suppose, use what the dark arts there, or was it a case of Boyinder being a bit too soft?
I think a little bit of both, to be honest. I think from the Arsenal point of view, they're trying to block the keeper, make it as difficult as they can. As you say, the dark arts, little nudges, and sort of trying to put people off as much as you can. So yeah, and you know, as a defensive unit, as a goalkeeper, these are things that are going to be happening every single time there's an opportunity to put a ball in the box. So for me, even though I agree with Lee, it probably was a foul. I think as a goalkeeper, you know, you've got to be a lot stronger than that, and you've got to command your box a little bit better, and you've got to sort of get more of a sort of purchase on that. When he tried to punch it away, it looked a little bit weak, if I'm honest. I think, you know, a top goalkeeper there just comes and cleans everybody out and takes the lot. Hence why, obviously, we have spoke in terms of the goalkeeping position being a massive issue. I think, you know, in terms of where we are going to be this season, I think that will determine on whether we get another couple of bodies through the door in terms of a goalkeeper who we know we can rely on, who's consistent and sort of, you know, nails the basics down and does everything that you expect from a top class goalkeeper. So yeah, you know, unfortunately for him, it was, you know, a mistake what will be looked at and scrutinised. But yeah, you know, cute play by Arsenal trying to, you know, make him off balance and just to give them a little bit of an edge, maybe to get a ball in the box and put him under pressure.
And you know, I remember even Gary Neville said after the game, it's the fact he palmed it. Neville said if he put his fist on it, it probably would have went forward a couple of yards, and the defender could have cleared it even. Even if he got like the slightest more of a touch with his fist rather than the palm.
Yeah, it was a weird. I mean, obviously, it was a good ball. It's been whipped in under the crossbar, but as a goalkeeper, you know, it's strange to see someone sort of come out and use the palm to try and get rid of the ball. You know, as you say, a lot of goalkeepers are taught to try and use the fist to try and get more of a purchase and clear the box. But yeah, obviously, you know, you could look at it both ways and say it should have been a foul. But for me, I'm more in the camp of the goalkeeper needs to do better, really, and be a little bit more commanding of his box.
I feel a little bit sorry for him too, because obviously we're all going off last year and the amount of times Onana cocked up and, you know, cost us points. So anything what Bayinda does or Tom Eaton, if he comes us and does a mistake, and over the season goalkeepers do make a mistake, you know what I mean? Every goalkeeper in the world does it. It will be heightened with Man United because of the amount of mistakes that Onana made last year. So we'll be scrutinising it, and I do feel a little bit sorry for him. He didn't really do anything else wrong in the game. I thought his distribution with the ball were good. I mean, he didn't have many target shots to actually save. I think we had 13 more shots than Arsenal throughout the game. You know, we was a much better side. So in that respect, I do feel sorry for him that it's gonna be scrutinised because of what all the fans on what want to happen. The same is when I come and claim that number 1 jersey, he's gonna have to have the confidence to, you know, to do much better than he did.
And do you know what that separates, lads? Like, what separates like the top keepers from like the ones who are, you know, great, and then the ones who are good. The top keepers will have that level of concentration and I suppose have that level of being able to command their box at all times. Whereas like if you're Peter Schmeichel, Edwin van der Sar, Petr Cech, you know, if you're looking at current day, you know, Alisson Becker, Manuel Neuer, you know, keepers like that who command their box, who have a presence, and if it's a defender or a striker in front of them that's trying to, you know, give it to them or try to do dark arts, that they clean them out. They let them know who's there, like. And I think that's the presence we lack.
Every good goal I've ever known has always had an aggressive side to them. You know what I mean? They won't take looking. I'll not say no what I was going to say, but they'll not take no rubbish. they've got that confidence to shout at the back four, to go and clean a man and the ball out, and they've got that aura about them. Unfortunately, Bayern didn't look like he had that in him, or doesn't have that in him at the moment in time. We can breed into him. I'm not sure.
I think as well, just quickly on the goalkeeping as well. Just when you look at teams who have a world-class goalkeeper, I think when you're doing your pre-match, tactics and looking at free kicks and set plays, I think teams who come to, say, Old Trafford at this moment in time will look at our goalkeeping situation and they will pinpoint that as a potential, target, because, you can see teams going to Liverpool and they probably won't be saying, let's try and get, under Alisson and get him, balls on the box, because they know he's a world-class keeper and they know 9 times out of 10 he's going to come and clear it. Whereas at the moment, because we're in a situation where our goalkeeper last year was making a lot of mistakes, we've got a new keeper coming in who's not played much football and probably a bit of scrutiny on him because of the situation. That would have been in Arteta's team talk to say, let's test him early, put some balls in the box, make him, make some decisions and be aggressive, and don't let him come and win the ball. And I think that's basically what I'm trying to say, is that's like a situation that we're going to be in until we can nail down that position and bring somebody in who can, give us that consistent performance at the top level. Because as Lee said, goalkeepers do make mistakes, and it's about limiting the mistakes and being able to do the basics well. And I think for us at the moment, we haven't got a goalkeeper that can do that. So I think that will be a tactic of majority of teams that we play against in the next couple of weeks until maybe that's addressed.
And do you think, even just on the set pieces, do you think the fact we do, and I suppose maybe it's a bit specific for Arsenal because their set piece routines are quite unique, but do you think the mix of doing man-to-man and zonal marking and not doing one or the other, do you think that maybe sometimes maybe hinder goalkeepers as well, or is that a cop-out? No,
I agree. I agree with that. I think for me, I've always believed man-to-man marking is the best way. You've got your man, that's your man, and if he scores, you're held accountable. I think the zonal sort of situation for me has too many grey areas, and if a ball's whipped in and people are getting a run on you, it's very difficult to defend against. So I would personally go with the man-to-man, and I think as a goalkeeper as well, when people are getting marked and picked up, whereas not just putting people's bodies in spaces, it's a lot more beneficial, I believe. I mean, Lee may disagree or agree. He's a defender.
Yeah, I was about to pick Lee's brain on this. What do you prefer on a set piece or free kick?
I totally agree with Phil. Everything what Phil just said there, I totally agree with. Man-to-man, and the key word I was thinking all the way through that, and Phil mentioned it, was accountability. Accountability for your own actions. If you lose your man and that man's up scoring, that's your responsibility. You know what I mean? I think with zonal, sometimes it can be a cop-out. So yeah, not really much more to add on to it. I totally agree with him.
Yeah, I think that's because the way we was brought up, Lee, with the way it was at United when we was there. I think everybody knew, set pieces, everyone, this is your man. And then, as I say, that's your responsibility. Then if he scores, it's your fault. You're held accountable. And I think it just made everybody's mind clearer of what he was doing when it was a defensive set piece or a corner. You knew where he was, whether he was on the edge of the box, whether he was staying up, or whether he was in the near post space, or whether he was marking. I think it just gives you that clarity so that you can go in and you know exactly what your role is.
Yeah, I sometimes think that, Phil. Obviously, we'll always do it, and we always will do. We'll always go back to our playing days, and I always question whether do they overcomplicate football these days with the tactics and the different formations and the zonal markings and this, that, and the other. I think sometimes, I don't know, like say much, because we've played at a different era, and sometimes you don't like change, but I do think sometimes they can really overcomplicate things and go a little bit into the tick-attack a bit too much, really.
Yeah, 100%. I think the way we've been set up with set pieces, I'd say in the last decade, whereas like under Van Gaal it was all zonal marking, Jose it was kind of a mix of both. Ollie was zonal, and as much as I love Ollie, and I'm saying preface to this now, I love the man so much, But the way we set up a set piece under him was abysmal because we used to concede set piece goals nearly every week. They were the goals we were conceding most of the time. But like, you know, I think the way they complicate it now, doing half man mark and half zonal, it creates confusion, I think. Especially, like, look, I'll say this like hand on heart, we have great defenders, but we don't have elite defenders. And I think if you have defenders who aren't elite, who can't pick up these things straight away, it's going to cause problems. And I think when you have defenders who sometimes their decision making on their best day isn't great, then if you're doing half zonal, half man marking, it's going to cause problems naturally, you know, because it just naturally comes like that. 100%. But like, I suppose before we talk about the Fulham game, the transfer window is very close to an end. And obviously we brought these players in. They've come in. They've played quite well. Even like young Diego Leon looks good as well. He's going to look like one for the future. Before I get to that, actually, there's a question about a defender. I'm going to bring this to you, Lee. Does Yaro become great?
Yaro's got the potential to become great. I think he's got all the attributes to become great. He's got the athleticism. It looks like he's got the football brain. At this moment in time, I don't think he's where he needs to be on the ball, with the ball at his feet. He shows that he can do it. And I think he's still a young kiddo. Was he 18, 19, something like that? I know he's
19, yeah.
Old. Playing at Old Trafford. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of pressure there. If he can handle the pressure, he gets looked after properly with the right people around him, and they bring all the attributes out which is showing he has. On the ball, he is good. He's just not consistently good. I think he could become one of our main defenders for a long time, but with the right people around him and being able to have the time and to allow him to his ability to flourish, then I think it could be one for a long time for us.
Yeah, I think he has great potential. I think the one thing I love about him, he's very athletic. Like his recovery pace is really good, and like his tackling, I think for me is top as well. I think I agree with you on the ball. I think some decision making on the ball can get better, but he's young, like, and he has a lot more. Like, he has a lot of redeeming qualities that, like, you know, even if he's naturally not great in the ball all the time, you know, his recovery, and his, you know, like his pace will get him out of trouble. Like even Rio was unreal on the ball, but when Rio gave away the ball, he had Vidic beside him.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of a young Rio. I was just going to do exactly what you've just done then and say, it reminds me a little bit of a young Rio, to be honest.
Yeah, there's some like comparisons. I think even Rio was mentioning on Twitter as well, about kind of the comparisons on how Yaro and Rio were at a young age, and yeah, like I think he's quite good. Do I think he reaches Rio Ferdinand levels? It's hard to say at this time. I think we'd have to see a lot bigger sample size of that, but I think he's going to be a top centre half from the club. And like, look, to be fair, I think if Real Madrid are coming in for you at 17, 18 years of age, you can't be half bad, can you? Like, to be fair, and Man United for that matter.
I think Maguire will be good for him too. With I know Maguire's nowhere near finished, but the level of experience in World Cups and being at United for so long and going through what he's going through with the captaincy and showing the resilience he's had and the right attitude he's had to get himself back to where he is now, I think that'll be if he could take him under his wing a little bit, I think, and install that attitude in him at a young age, I think that'll help him massively too. Yeah,
100%. 100%. I think he's a very good centre half. I think there's room, like there's always room for improvement, but I think he's going in the right direction, which is a good thing. And there's no talk of him being like a Garnacho or doing any outside of the pitch BS. So that's always a good sign for a young player. But yeah, just on that, obviously we're going to talk about the transfer window there. Obviously we brought players in. It looks like at the moment, I'm going to say at the moment because you never know at this club, that the Carlos Baliba deal is on hold until next summer. It looks like now, whatever, anything can happen with Man United. So don't rule out by the end of the window yet. I'm saying that as an opinion, not as fact, by the way. So no one better quote me and say this deal is happening because the internet is wild. But That deal is obviously on hold. We are looking at a couple of midfielders. We are looking at 1 or 2 goalkeepers. By the looks of things, it looks like a couple of players have to leave before these kind of take shape and take pace. Looks like Garnacho to Chelsea is moving, but United and Chelsea are kind of, I suppose, at loggerheads over the fee. I suppose I'm not going to harp on about their attitude and stuff because we talked about that last week. But I want to bring this question to both of you. Is I'll come to you first, Phil. Do you think the way United have kind of ostracized them in a way? Now I know Ruben's kind of done the right thing by, I suppose, making an example of these lads. But do you think the fact they have been separated and the fact that United have briefed to the media that these lads have been moved away from the training pitch and they've been labelled like the bomb squad is what they've been called in the media right now. Do you think with all these reports coming out, and do you think the fact United have been so public with the fallouts of these players that's actually affected our position in terms of selling these guys?
Possibly, yeah. I think obviously it's never good when there's all messy situations, and obviously if a player wants to leave the club, you would, in an ideal world, want that to be going both ways and just running quite smoothly. However, I think nowadays, because of the amount of money and obviously the egos of some of the players and the player power we've touched on, I think situations can get a little bit messy and sort of, where things don't go quite to plan. I think obviously, you've named a few players there, Garnacho and obviously the Sancho situation and things like that. Obviously Rashford's gone to Barcelona. I think it's never great really when, teams are in the media for unnecessary reasons, like obviously players sort of acting out and having negative press isn't obviously good for the team morale. And obviously when you're preparing for a big game, obviously like the game on Sunday against Arsenal, and you've got all these other side shows going on, it's never ideal. But I think the way the manager's dealt with it for me is good, because I think he's set his stall out and he's sort of gave the message to the whole group to say that if you're not all singing on the same hymn sheet and we're not all on board and we're doing things the way that I expect, then this is probably going to be the outcome that you will have. So for me, I think the manager's in a difficult position. He's obviously got players who are under contract, who are on a lot of money, who are trying to dictate what happens. So I think the only way he can have an effect on that and do something about it is basically doing what he's done. So for me, I don't really see anything wrong with the way the manager's dealt with it. I just, sort of see it as the players are sort of being a little bit unprofessional, in my opinion, a little bit, childish and just trying to, act as though they're bigger than the club. And as we all know, there's no player that's bigger than the club. So yeah, I think he's done the right thing.
Yeah, so I suppose in the essence that he's done the right thing. I agree. I think he has done the right thing in terms of making an example of these players and obviously telling the players that, look, if you're not with us, if you're not fully committed, you can leave. Simple as that. I'm fully in agreement with that. I think Lee, the thing I wouldn't say I have a problem with, but the thing I can see why it's hard for us to get rid of these players is Sir Alex used to keep all this behind closed doors. If situations like this were happening behind closed doors, the media wouldn't get a sniff. Do you think it's a difference of the club lacking control, that I suppose the club lacking control of the narrative, or do you think it's just today's day and age with social media and all these different media outlets now that these situations are bound to kind of, I suppose, be open to the media and I suppose everyone basically in the world at the moment?
100%, mate. Social media, 100% social media, mate. Yeah, there's that many platforms where, I mean, you can see that a lot of the players don't write their own social media. They've got their own teams doing it, sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. I totally agree with what Phil said and yourself. I think he's done everything the right way, as in he's let everybody know that there's no player bigger than Man United. Totally agree with the way he's handled that, but I do think that's give other clubs who's coming in for the lads a bit of room for manoeuvre on the prices to, use that as the attitude. And, it's put, we don't want to buy him at 60 million, we'll buy him at 40 because what if he comes here and has a bad attitude? They've given leverage to use that. Where, like I say, with Sir Alex Ferguson, all the problems really was kept behind closed doors, and all they come out after the players were signed for other clubs or years down the line. But again, social media wasn't around them days, so it was a lot easier to keep things under wraps. So yeah, it's an hard one because I don't think he's done nothing wrong with the way he's handled everything, but I do think that has allowed other clubs to put cheekier bids in than really what do. I mean, look at Garnacho, 30 million. Look at the other players what are getting signed for much more than that, and it's it just shows it's to do with what's gone on in the media. That's the reason why they're only bidding 30 and 40 million. Where if he was kept quiet, had his head down, it was just that we'd signed another player what was a little bit better than him, and due to the structure of Man United and Amarin's plans a little bit better, he's going for 60, 70 million. And I think I totally agree with what I've said there. But because of what has gone on, I think that's why the value in him so low.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think, and this is what's wrecking my head about all this is, like, realistically, Garnacho should be in the same ballpark figure than like these Madueke's, players like that, Omari Hutchinson, Anthony Elanga. Love that guy, by the way, but Garnacho was probably in around the same level. Do you know what I mean? In terms of quality. Like, when you look at these players, they're all going for 50, 60, 70 million. Omari Hutchinson going for about 40 million. And then Chelsea are offering 25 million pounds for Garnacho as a starting bid. Like, that's, look, I understand why Chelsea are doing it. Like, I'm not slandering Chelsea for this because, they're like, we're not in a strong position from like a negotiation standpoint because of what's happened with the player. But like, we shouldn't be in this position. I think if Sir Alex at the club, this wouldn't be made known, and we'd be selling them. But like, I suppose the nature of some of this stuff wouldn't have happened. But I suppose again, we're probably living in a different time where, like you both have kind of mentioned, where social media and like leaking to the media if you're a football player seems to be becoming a thing. Because like, I'm seeing this all the last 2 weeks. Basically, Fabrizio Romano has an update about Garnacho every couple of hours, and it's like, yeah, you're definitely getting paid by his agent, like, do you know what I mean, to put out these updates. And it's like, where it's different. It kind of, like, again, number one, like I mentioned last week, it ruins transfers, and number two, like, it sets precedent for future transfers when we're trying to get rid of players who we don't want to be in that kind of position where we're leaving them go for peanuts almost, like,
I think just to add to it too, I was meant to mention it a little bit earlier when you mentioned something. I think if you go back to Sir Alex, his era, and it was a long era. I think the key word is consistency. Rashford mentioned it in his interview with Lineker, and I kind of agreed with him a little bit. You knew, because obviously Sir Alex had the club for so long, and he had a structure where things worked. There was consistency on and off the field with behaviour, the way you played, the structure. I think since Alex Ferguson's left, and we've had so many managers, so many owners, so many different ways of playing. Obviously, the managers coming in with different ways of thinking on and off the field and things like that. There's been zero consistency. So it's allowed the players to have that little bit more freedom, because one manager will be thinking one way, one manager will be thinking another. We knew under Sir Alex Ferguson any silly behaviour, and there was no second chance. You were just out the door, and that was because of consistency, and everybody knew the rules we had to play by. And I think because of the amount of messing around what's gone over the last 10, 15 years, however long it's been, it's allowed the players to get a bit more player power than really they should have been allowed.
Yeah, 100%. And it sets a culture that you don't need, really, essentially. We'll move on to obviously Fulham on Sunday, because they had a really good season last season, though. They they stayed up in the Premier League. They played really good football at times. And Marco Silva's obviously done a really good job in terms of like stabilizing them as a football team. Sean brought up a comment here about 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to bring it up now. So I told him I wouldn't forget. I'll bring this to both of you. What do you think Fulham will bring that's different to what Arsenal offered on Sunday?
Sorry.
Phil got a cat on.
Yeah, didn't even know he was here. Sorry, was that to me, the Fulham question?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, last year I think Fulham probably overachieved. I think they had a really good season. Marco Silva had them playing really well. A lot of players with a lot of energy going forward. I like Robinson, the fullback, who was a player I potentially, looked at for maybe us to sign. But yeah, I think, with Fulham, they're quite a proactive team. They're always on the front foot. They like to go forward. I think they've got quite a few technical players who can create things. Pereira, obviously, was at United. He's
pre-season Pirlo.
Yeah, he's quite good. I think he gets quite a lot of assists and does a lot of good things for Fulham. So yeah, I think it's going to be obviously a different game to the Arsenal game. I think Arsenal are a title challenging team. I think Fulham obviously on the back of what was their first result actually? I can't even remember what happened with them. Did they get a draw?
They lost the Brighton. Did they draw?
They equalised, I think, in the last minute, didn't they? I'm sure
they did. They got on 96 minute. Yeah. You're right.
No. So obviously, they've started the season off with a decent draw away at Brighton, which is a good point on the road. So they're obviously going to be going into the game with a bit of confidence, looking to pick up some more points. But I think for us, we obviously need to play the way that we played against Arsenal. I think we will have a little bit more joy against Fulham in terms of in the attacking parts of the pitch. If we can do what we did against Arsenal and sort of control the game, I'm quietly confident that we can get away with a good 3 points. So yeah, as I say, the game are always tough in the Premier League, regardless of who you're playing. But I think with what I've seen overall so far in pre-season in that first game against Arsenal, I think we've got more than enough to get 3 points away at Fulham.
Do you think Sesko starts?
I hope so. I think Lee touched on it before in terms of my opinion with Mount playing in that false nine. I think that was the only area really I thought on Sunday where in some of the build-up play when we was looking at getting that ball forward, if you've not got a recognised number 9 who's got that, being able to build from as a platform, hold the ball up, pop it off, get in the box. I think that's the sort of position that was a little bit lacking on Sunday. And obviously when you've got Cunha and Mbeumo making runs off that and the creativity that they bring, for me, Sesko must start on the next game just to start gelling and start getting that bit of chemistry in that front three as early as possible, because I think that could be potentially a really good front three and a dangerous one if they can sort of start linking up and getting that partnerships where as we say, relationships in football are massive. If we can get them firing and mixing it, I think they can be a really good combination.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely start on Sunday. We'll get starting 11s in a minute. Paul says I'd be worried about Bobby Zamora on Sunday. I think you must have got time machine back to 2009, pal. Bobby
Zamora at all, great striker.
Yeah, he was actually a great player. Yeah, Clint Dempsey. They had who did they have? It was Zamora, Dempsey, and Damien Duff as a front three, weren't they? It was something like that.
Yeah.
That's some good plays, though. Great plays.
Yeah. Damien Duff, and he done fantastically well as manager of Shelbourne. And Roy Keane said today on the overlap, he was like, if I go back managing, me and Damien Duff are going to be number 1 and number 2. And then a report on what Irish media outlet it was today, it said they'd be bad cop, there'd be no good cop there. it might be bad in this generation. Two lads like that going in to address them. I think all the players start crying. But yeah, like I think Fulham are a good team. I think you mentioned Anthony Robinson, a left back. He's very good. Obviously, they have Emile Smith-Rowe. Rodrigo Muniz was a very good striker last season. I was really impressed with him up front last year. And funnily enough, we were linked to him before we got Sesko as a Sesko alternative. So I wonder, is there going to be fire in his belly? Because the fact that there was, I suppose, some talks there. I wonder will there be some fire in his belly on that. I suppose with that in mind, we're going to do some starting 11 predictions for Sunday. So I know the lads last week, they knew I was going to ask them this question. So I'm going to ask them again this week. Lee, I'll come to you. What's your starting 11 for Sunday? What would you pick?
I've got about 8 different starting 11s here, what I've wrote out. And I've still not made my mind up, if I'm being honest. I wish you would have gone to Phil first.
I go to Phil if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. He's obviously, I've picked different formations, and he's not going to do any different formations. We know that. So I'm trying to get Manu in my team because I want to see Manu play. I think that's for myself. So I don't think he changes it much more differently than he had last week. I think the only difference he may change is he might bring Shaw out and maybe put Maguire in. But then I worry a Maguire, De Ligt and Euro back 3. Is it a little lacking in its legs? I'm not sure.
I think it's maybe trying to build out from the back might be a problem without the natural left footer in the left centre back position, I'd say.
I'm going to go for the same team, but I'm going to go for him. He's going to start Sesko up front. He's going to bring Mount out. So basically, Shaw, De Ligt, Euro, Bayinda in goal, obviously. Dorgu on the left. I think he sticks to that with Dallo on the right. I mean, I think he'll play Bruno and Casemiro, but I'm going to say he's going to rest Casemiro and bring Manu in. And then I'm going to go for Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko. That's what I think.
Nice. I love the Cobby inclusion. I'd love her to start because he's exceptional footballer.
Got to find a position for him.
Yeah, whether it's in one of them 10 positions or in the midfield, he can definitely I'm going to go off track for 1 second here because I need to kind of rant a small bit about this. Like, Cobby played in a midfield 3 of Scott McTominay, Bruno, and himself. And McTominay and Bruno aren't defensive players. And McTominay can do a job, but he's a runner. He goes forward. He arrives into the box. Bruno arrives into the box. Manu sat and held that midfield when he came into the team when Casemiro was out. So there's no reason why with 3 centre backs behind him that he can't play in a 2 in midfield.
No, I've got 4-3-2-1 here with him in there with Bruno and Casemiro, or even Bruno and Cunha, and sticking Diallo on the right too, and I think that could work perfectly well too.
If Amram leaves, and again, I think he's going to stay and he's going to be a great manager, but I'm just prefacing this. If we get a back 4 manager, this squad with the new signings could be really good, but I think equally with a back 3 can work too. But
my preferred is a back 4. But when I've wrote it out, I would prefer a back 4 than a back 5 with what we've got at the moment. That's probably for another podcast, but that's what I would go with.
Yeah, we might do next week alternative Manchester United lineups, and we go what we would ideally go with the whole squad, and we'll just do a segment where who's the best player for each position, and we'll explain why. We're going to do that next week, so we're going to lock that in, and we're going to do that next week. Alternative we're not going to say anti-Ruben Amorim lineups. We're going to say alternative Man United lineups, and 3 of us are going to pick our squads on that one. But Phil, do you have anything different to Lee, or did you go kind of the exact same 11 as last week?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I don't think he'll change much, if anything. To be honest, I think Sesko could be the only one what he changes for Mount. So I pretty much agree with Lee, if I'm being honest, with the team. I said last week that I'd love Manu to be involved as well. I really rate him and think we would benefit from having him in the team. However, I just don't think the manager will start him at this moment in time ahead of Casemiro. So, yeah, I'm just going to go for the same team basically as what Lee said with Sesko starting up front. I hope he does anyway. I mean, whether he brings him on again off the bench, I'm not quite sure. But for me, I think, obviously touching on what I just said, the sooner we get him in that number 9 position to give us a chance to sort of build up play and get him, playing with the likes of Mbeumo and Cunha and building them relationships, I think that can only be seen as a positive and benefit us moving forward, I think, in the long term.
Yeah, 100%. It's about building that kind of getting them relationships to click sooner rather than later. I agree. I've like a couple of changes, but I think they're kind of enforced nearly. Like, I think if Onana's back this week, he's going to start Onana in goal. I said this last week. I'm kind of dying on a weird hill with that, but I think Onana will start. Then I think it's same back three. De Ligt, Yoro, Luke Shaw. Dorgu left wing back. I think Ahmad comes in as the right wing back in this game, to pin them back, to pin Robinson and Calvin Bassey back on that kind of in their left channel. So I'm going to go Ahmad right wing back. Then unfortunately I'm going Casemiro and Bruno's the two. Again, I'd love Copy to play, but I think Casemiro's going to start. And then I go Mbeumo, Sesko, and Matheus Cunha. That's my front three. But I think Ahmad's going to come in. I'd have a feeling, again, this is completely uneducated, but I feel like with Robinson bombing up and down, and with Calvin Bassey not being that great in space, I think Ahmad and Mbeumo on that side can actually pick up a lot of kind of loose space there. I think we can exploit Fulham that way. So that's why I'm going to go with that. But equally, even if we don't start Ahmad, I think even later in the game when the game stretches, as you know, Ahmad after 60 minutes, when there's plenty of space, could be a way to win us the game. But on that, we did do our score predictions last week. We didn't go too well with our score predictions last week. So we're going to hopefully all three of us get right predictions, or most importantly, Man United get 3 points this week. That's the most important thing. But we like a little competition between ourselves as well. So we are going to do the score predictions. Lee, I'll come to you first. You predicted Desmond last week. What's your score prediction this week?
I've written it down. I'm going to change it. I've written 2-1 United. And I've wrote Sesko and Cunha. But I'm going to change it. I think we're going to win 3-1. And I think we're going to score late on. So I'm going to go for it.
So Lee is gone 3-1. Phil, are you done 2-1 last week? Are you going to go the same score prediction, or do you have a different one?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to stick with 2-1. I think I can see us scoring a couple of goals again this weekend. Even though last weekend we didn't score, I think this weekend we've got more of a chance against Fulham. So I'm going to go for 2-1. I think Fulham might just get a goal as well, just obviously being at home and obviously off the back of a decent result. So, yeah, 2-1 win and 3 points to kick us off and hopefully go on a little run now.
Yeah, 100%. And I locked my score in at the start of the pod. I need to change these around because I have you saying Fulham are going to win these scores. I'll change that at the end. So Lee went 3-1, Phil went 2-1, I went 2-0 United. I think we're going to kick it off well. I think if we play the way we played Sunday, having measured possession and I suppose having a striker up there will open up more space for us to create chances. So I'm going to go 2-0 United. In terms of goal scorer, I'm going to be purely nostalgic here. We lost our opening game of the season in 2012-13, 1-0. We played Fulham in our second game. Our new striker got a start that day. Can anyone remember who scored that goal that day?
Saha,
second game, 2012-13. Sir Alex's last season. Yeah. So I'm going to go completely nostalgic here. I'm going to go 2-0 win, and Sesko is going to get his first goal. And we had Fulham in the second game of last season, and Van Persie scored. Now, I'm not going to say 21 is coming, but the omen is there, lads, on that one. So we've locked in our score predictions, 3-1, 2-1, and 2-0 for that one. And then Paul, yes, sir, ding, ding, ding. You are correct. It was Robin Van Persie. But just before we wrap up, I have a little fun little mini game here between the three of us, right? Because it's Man United against Fulham. So last week we done like 5-a-sides and stuff, and then like we looked into how we do in terms of retro stuff. So this week I have a new one. Can you name? I'll come to both of you. You're a team on this, so this isn't an individual thing. Both of you are a team on this. Can you name players who played for Manchester United and Fulham?
Oh, good God!
I just named one. Louis Saha.
Oh, you've got a better football brain than me.
Yeah. Pereira,
Louis Saha, you're correct. Yeah. Andreas Pereira.
Yeah.
Van der Sar.
Yeah.
How many is there?
As in, did anyone say Louis?
Will I give one of you? Will I give you a clue?
Go on.
One of them's a former teammate of yours in the academy.
Position.
Left wing and left back. And right wing as well. He played on the wing and he played full back as well. We've actually spoke about this player in person when we met up. Now I know that was 3 years ago, but I remember the conversation.
Fulham.
You're gonna have to give it me. I can't think.
No, hang on.
Kieran Richardson.
Oh
yeah,
fucking course he did. Jesus Christ.
So hang on.
Do you know
Van der Sar.
Van der Sar, Louis Saha, Kieran Richardson, Andreas Pereira as well.
I always forget. I always think of Kieran as West Brom. That's how I always think of Kieran when it's West Brom. Season with West Brom, I always forget about the Fulham.
I always think of him as Sunderland. I don't know why, because he went to Sunderland as well, didn't he?
I'll give you another clue. One of these players is one of our top goal scorers ever. He's in our top 10.
Andy Cole.
Yeah.
Andy Cole.
Andy Cole.
Yeah.
The next clue, I'll give you another clue with this. The next player is a 2-time Premier League winner under Sir Alex Ferguson. Actually, let me box that off because there's two players. I'll give you two players here, right? One's a 2-time Premier League winner and one's a 3-time Premier League winner. So I'll give you two players here, and they played from the 2000s and the 2010s.
I can't think. I can't think off the top of my head.
I'll give you another clue. One of them was a defender that played centre back and right back. England international.
England international.
Yeah.
Centre back, right back, England international. No, you're gonna have to give it me. Can't think.
My mind's gone blank now. I thought I'd have been
Chris Smalling.
Good one, yeah. Chris Smalling, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Smalling, Jesus, yeah.
And then the clue for the other one who won another Premier League, another multiple-time Premier League winner. This player played up front and also had a 20-goal season.
Yeah, Berbatov.
Yeah, Berbatov. Yeah. So so you've got Edwin van der Sar, you've got Andy Cole, you've got Saha, you've got Smalling, you've got Berbatov. There's one that you haven't said, and again, it's one that probably it's one of our most notable players, but I don't think people actually don't remember he played for Fulham. So I'll give you a couple of others, right? George Best.
Yeah.
George Best played for Fulham. A member of Talk the Devils, Mr. Paul Parker. Then there's Academy graduates Charlie Mitten, Ryan Tunnicliffe, Oliver Norwood, Will Tranter, and Larnell Cole. They're the remaining players who played for Man United and Fulham.
We did absolutely crap then, Phil, didn't we? We didn't do so well at all, then, did we?
Not too bad. I mean, there's a lot of them that you probably don't resonate with Fulham. Like, I wouldn't resonate George Best with Fulham and Andy Cole, Newcastle. You always think of where they probably had their best seasons, like Andy Cole, Newcastle United.
I've seen the Paul Parker one, and I thought Paul played for QPR.
He did. Paul did play for QPR, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's where when I seen Paul on the list there, I was like, he played for Fulham too. So QPR always comes to mind, obviously with Man United as well. That he played for them as well. So
we got Paul from QPR, didn't we? Did we not buy him from QPR?
I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he come from QPR, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and I seen him on Fulham. I think he was at Fulham before QPR. And then the Kieran Richardson one, I had to remember, like, I know he went to Sunderland, didn't he, under Roy Keane, I'm pretty sure, on loan.
I think a few of them did, like Johnny Evans went, I think Danny Simpson went, Smalling, Fraser Campbell. Yeah, there was quite a lot that went that sort of era when Keane was in charge.
Yeah. When I've seen some of these players, I was like, I had to try to remember when that happened. So I like to consider myself, though, like when it comes to like these quizzes, I like to consider myself good at them. But when I seen it, when I picked up the list during the podcast, I was like, I'm going to bring this up here and it's the lads, and I brought it up there on screen of my phone. I was like, I didn't know these.
I'd like a bit more notice there, Keane, if I'm being honest. I like to do homework.
Then you would have had all the answers, Lee. You would have had all the answers.
Yeah, I'll tell you
I like that, Keane. Drop it.
I'll tell you what I've seen all over Twitter today. I'm surprised we've not talked about it. I don't know if it's just hearsay or not. The rumour of Camavinga instead of Belieber. Have you seen that hearsay? I
think I seen a tweet about it last night.
I think quite a lot of it gathering momentum.
What do you think if we did sign him? Do you think he'd be a good signing?
I mean, he's pacey, on and off the ball. He's athletic. I've been calling out for an athletic centre midfield player for a long time, for years. And he has.
I think the good thing about him as well, he can play a few different positions, can't he?
Versatile.
Left back as well.
Versatile as well. So
he could be the option to be that box to box or even that sitting midfielder and bring Mainoo on a lot too. You know what I mean? Like Mainoo flourish a little bit. I've got it down here on a point. I thought it might be a decent shot. You know, if you don't get Belieber, that could be a decent shot. I know he's only 22. He's still a young kid himself, but he offers a lot of opportunity for his versatility.
Yeah, he's very versatile and he is a very good footballer. And he's in a couple of Real Madrid's recent Champions League wins, he's been a very good player off the bench as well for him in terms of changing games. He's been really good that way. I think my only concern with him would be his like recent injury record.
He's got injury.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of fear I'd have. But like, if you're looking at modern football these days, players often have had injuries. So this is what it is, really. But like, we are going to wrap it up on that one, guys. And thanks very much to both Phil and Lee for coming on. And make sure to obviously do smash a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel. And if you are listening on the audio platforms as well, do give us a star rating and do give us a subscribe as well, because we do have a good variety of the podcast series, Tactics podcast. Then obviously we have the pod with Phil, Paul Parker, Wayne Barton, and Dave Murphy as well on the Mondays as well. So there's a good bit of variety, a bit of everything for everyone. So no other channel is doing this at the moment. So like, at the end of the day, there's no better place to be than right here at the moment. So do obviously subscribe and get the notifications on, so when we do go live, obviously straight away. But on that note, guys, thanks very much to the two lads for coming on. Hopefully we get 3 points for Man United this weekend, and obviously, most importantly, hope everyone has a good weekend outside that. But until then, guys, thanks very much everyone for watching, and we'll see you later.